Old dog, old dog. It's my main dog, Po. How you going, brothers? And the occasional sister. There she goes. Good old girl. Anyway, it's time for another Frosty adventure. Frosty the pig dog, so we'll go in the hut. You can sit back in your bed. This is where she spends her time now, on the front porch, where all old dogs end up, around here, when they've paid their dues. Oh, she's coming with me. That's okay. Cute. You want to come in today, mate, do you? Alright, come on in. Sit down, Poe. Sit down. Good girl. Good job, Poe. That's a good girl. Good girl. Stay there. Periodically you're going to hear that's the banging of Poe's tail on the ground as I tell a story. Hey, look at this shirt, guys. This comes from Jared Pearce, patron and good bastard. Pig hunter. Gave me this and a number of other cool things, so thanks, Jared. We are still in Auckland. I'm getting ready soon to leave and go to Te Puke, but I'm still hanging out with some good friends I've got in Ponsonby. I'm staying with the Radio Haraki crowd, and I'm going regularly hunting with a couple of good mates, Bera and Alen. Alan's got a funny twitch like this when he talks. Every word Alen goes to say before he says it. If you say to him, hey, what do you think of that dog? He'll go, it's a really good dog. So consequently, because he'd do that all the time, you didn't want to ask him too much because I felt sorry for him because he went into a real spasm. And he was a lovely, lovely guy. A lovely guy. Very, very honest, very compassionate and generous. Very generous. Never took money off me. I'd always offer some money for the fuel for the hunts, but never ever took it. Berta, who was also known as Bert when you were hunting, was like two personalities. And Berta, I first of all thought Berta must be a woman, but Berta's definitely not a woman. Berta was a man. And then Berta also was married to a lovely wife, and she cooked really good cheese scones with wild bacon in them, which was delicious. I always remember her cheese scones. And they had two sons and a little farmlet, and he was a regular guy, except he liked to wear mascara. He had a wig that he put on when he'd go out. Lots of makeup, fingernail polish, lipstick, sparkly stuff on him sometimes. He wears sequins and all that stuff. And when you're at the pub, you called him Berta, and when you were pig hunting, you called him Bert. And when you're pig hunting, he used to wear a rugby shirt, and when you were at the pub, he was Berta, but his voice always sounded like a bloke, in a real rough voice like that. So him and Alen became my mates. Now Berta's pig dog Scab got killed, got shot by some arsehole that was just an arsehole. People that shoot dogs for no good reason are arseholes. I don't care what you say. And this guy was a definite arsehole. But we were still going hunting, so after I had finished work at Salter's restaurant, they would come around to my place in Ponsonby and pick me up early in the morning, and we'd go off for a hunt. Various different places. So before I went to Te Puke, we went on 4 hunts, which were all pretty non-eventful except the last one. The other 3 were okay. We caught the occasional small pig, nothing flash. We had one where we got nothing. But on the 4th and final hunt, we had a bit of drama, and that's what this story's about, pretty much. The hunt started off really good. The usual thing, got picked up at 4 a.m. in the morning, Alen driving, Berta sitting there with the mascara on from the night before and lipstick still from the pub. It was a Sunday morning, we'd been on the piss on this Saturday. Sitting there rolling a big old Port Royal, smoking it, sharing it with me. Alen at the driver's seat, and we're toddling off to another zone to go pig hunting with just Frosty. Frosty was starting to become a good pig dog. He'd gone from a very average, not very stock-proof dog to a dog that was becoming solid through the hunting that I'd given him. Although he wasn't my dog and didn't belong to me, he belonged to Mal, a mate of mine. I thought of him as my dog because I did a lot of work with him. This particular hunt, it was an extra cold morning, and this time of the year normally wasn't that cold, but it was cold, and we were going off with sort of an attitude, oh, well, if we get something today, it's good. If we don't get something, it's good too. I think that was because we're all terribly, terribly hungover. We've been drinking JDs the night before and mixing it up, and as a young fella, I didn't handle my piss very well, and yeah, so none of us we're all a bit worse for wear this particular morning. Got out of the truck. Of course, we don't have GPS tracking gear, and we don't have two-way radios, and we don't have phones. We don't have cameras to record any of this shit. This is just a piece of binder twine around your waist, a sheath knife, and a pair of gumboots, and that's pretty much it. And off we go in this place, next to a farm that we're also allowed to hunt sometimes. And Frosty peels up this track, and straight away gets onto a pig. And I can hear it squealing, maybe 100 metres away, and I said, it sounds like about a 30-40 pounder. And Bera just rolls up a cigarette and says, sort it out, boy. Alan's running along with me, we're running up the track, and just over the side of the track you can hear, Whee! Go down there, and I can see this tail wagging, and it's old Frosty. And Frosty's, normally he's on the nose, but this time he's on the balls, and it's a little boar sitting down, and Frosty's like got his head buried under it, and the pig's sitting on Frosty's head, and he's wagging his tail, and the pig's going nowhere. I go running down there, grab the pig, flip it, give it the knife, do the usual thing, whip the guts out. A standard textbook pig hunt, all good and well. Get back up the track, and Alan goes, do you think we should call it quits now? And I said, yeah, no, we'll go back, this will do. We get back to Bera, he's walking along slow like he is, an old hippopotamus on the track, clonk, clonk. He's a big man, clonk, clonk, clonk. He goes, oh yeah, that'll do for the pop. And I said, do you want to carry on, or should we call it quits? He says, no, we'll call it quits. And I said, well, we've got plenty of day left, it's only just coming on light. He goes, no, we'll call it quits. And I said, okay. So I went to whistle, and Frosty, he's not there. I thought, maybe this is a mob pig we just caught, maybe there's another one around. Sure enough, he's gone right up the track, and I can't hear, but I can see his paw marks in the mud in different places as I go along, so I'm tracking. When we didn't have tracking gear like MN10s or GPS or Garmin gear, we got very good at listening, but we got even better at tracking. We could look at the ground and we'd know where our dogs were. New old school hunters like me will know how much we learnt to track animals. And so we all got good at it. Alen, who I was hunting with, he was an exceptional tracker, and so I was now following him up this track. Bera had parked up on a big overturned log and was having a Port Royal. And Alen and I are walking up this track, and he's like, over here. He's like an Indian tracker, honestly, like one of those scouts, like an Indian scout, that's what I meant to say. As we get further on up the track, he loses where it is, and he said, just wait. And then he picks it up again after a while. He goes, look at this. And it's a little bit of stuff turned over, and then we find a nice big paw print, but we also find a good boar print, like fresh, with a big fat dew in it. He goes, good boar. He said, the trouble with up here is there's a big bluff up the end there. We don't want to go that too far up there. And I was thinking, well, good boar. I wasn't really particularly worried about a bluff. We get the boar bluff, that'll be okay. Get further on up the hill, and then we hear it. Arr, arr. Sure enough, good old Bale. And Alen goes, it's at the top of there. That's not a good place. So Alen and I start walking up the top of this hill. It's steep. It's really steep. I'm hanging on to stuff. It's so steep. You can't just walk up. You've got to hang on to stuff. And it's getting steeper and steeper. And as we get closer and closer, I'm hearing it. And Alan's like, I've left him behind a bit because I'm younger than he is. I'm like 16 and he's like 40 something, probably be about the age. As I'm getting closer to the bale, I can actually feel the ground shaking as the dog and the pig are moving around. You can hear a bit of grinding of tusks and scoffing, and the dog get up there, and here's this massive big pig with white socks. It's got white socks and a little bit of a white collar around here, just half a sort of a white collar, so it's got a bit of something else in it too. Probably 130 to 150 pound, and right below is a bluff with lots of little ledges and that. And the pig looks at me, does a circle, and Frosty goes to lunge at it, and the pig just goes over the edge. And I'm like, shit, how far's it gone down? And I get up there, and Frosty then goes flying down over the bluff. I can't see where Frosty's gone, I can't see where the pig's gone. And it's in a place where you can't look over the edge. So I'm like waiting, I'm like, Frosty, and I'm listening. There's not a noise, there's not a bark, there's nothing. Like, shit. I turn around and here's Alen, he goes, it's not good. And I said, it's not bloody good, they've gone over the edge. He goes, oh no. So we go all the way back down the bottom. When we get down the bottom, as we get down there, here's Bera finishing off the last of his cigarette, puts it out, he goes, they've gone up the bluffs, haven't they? And I said, yeah. He goes, shit. We go around there, we get through this native bush, and then we're climbing up through the scrub at the bottom of this bluff, trying to find anything, and then I find a spot of blood. And I say, Alen, look at this. And we find some blood, and then we find some more blood, and we follow it. And we keep on following it down. We go thinking we're going to be finding a dog, and then about 40 metres, we find this pig on the ground. It's still alive, its back leg's completely all fucked up, all like it's all smashed, broken. It's obviously dragged itself with its front legs, and it's lying there, its eyes still blinking, and no Frosty. I take my knife out and stick it, and I'm like looking for Frosty, nothing. I'm turning around, so we go back up to where we found the blood, and we start looking around there. There's not a print, not a mark anywhere. And then I'm looking up like this, just thinking maybe, and then I see it, a tiny wee dog, at almost the top, on a ledge, just sitting there. He's not barking, he's not doing anything, just sitting on a ledge. I'm like, shit, is that Frosty up there? And Alen looks up, he goes, yeah, fuck. And I'm like, oh shit, and I tell Bera, and Bera says, right, we'll get a rope out of the back of the truck, we'll lay you down, and we'll get it. I thought, this sounds like a dumbass idea. So we go back up to the top, take the rope out of the truck, get right around. Alen and I went to the very top, and Bera stayed at the bottom where he could see us, and tie a rope around a tree, work out roughly where it is, and I'm threading it round my back like this, just letting the rope out as I'm going down. It's a bloody long rope, and it's a proper one of those stretchy ones, so it's got a bit of give in it, but my hands are getting absolutely munted, and I haven't done much stuff like this. I've done a little bit of Boy Scouts, but I'm not really that, like I've never done abseiling before that there, and I've got it tied around a tree, got a bowline so it's not going to come off, and I'm going down there, and I don't even know what I'm going to find, and I get down further than I thought it was. I thought it was much closer to the top before I get to where Frosty is, and Frosty's like miles away from me, so I've got to abseil around, and as I'm doing that, my rope is grazing against the rocks, and that's a dangerous thing because it can fray and break, and I've got a sheer drop, almost sheer drop below me. I get finally around, I've got another rope around my shoulder, a second one, and I've got my knife on me, and here's Frosty on a ledge about this thick. He's just sitting there wagging his tail like, where have you been, boss? What took you so long? I'm a bit fucked up here. Don't know how I'm going to get down. How are you going to help me? And I'm like, oh, Frosty. Finally get round to that there. I put a rope, he's got a collar on already. I put a rope tied to the collar, and I tie around his waist at the back, and then tie him so he's like a shopping basket. He's got a rope over the two, and then I tie him to my belt, my hunting belt, which is about that thick, a big leather one. So he's tied to my belt, and I realised I can't get back up, it's too steep. The only way is to go down. And this rope that I've got probably goes almost to the bottom. So I'm shouting out to Alen, I can only go down, I can't go up. And Alan's like, okay. And I said, do you have any more rope back at the truck? Because I'm thinking maybe we could lengthen the rope at this end. And he goes, there's another strop at the back of the truck, do you want me to get it? I said, just hang on to it, you stay there. So now I'm going down the bank, and as I'm going down with the weight of the dog, I'm sort of abseiling and getting a little ledge here. My hands are raw, they're absolutely raw, and it's like the skin is getting stripped off, but I can't stop. And every so often, I'm having a place where it's like I'm having a slip, and I'm either smashing my knee on the rock or my face on the rock. I've bruised my elbow, I'm getting down, and then I get to a place where there's a bit of a tree that's growing out the side of the rock, and it gives us a resting point to stop there. And I'm looking up and I'm looking down, and now I'm like halfway, and I'm committed to going all the way down. I'm not going to get back up. And Frosty's like tied to my middle. We're sitting on this little ledge just having a breather, and I look at my hands and I'm like, oh shit. I always had calluses on my hands, they're all worn off, and I'm all red through here and got blood and all this sort of fluids coming out of my hands. They're just completely ripped, and I've still got to keep going down. I'm there thinking I can't do this, it's too painful, it's too sore, and I'm exhausted. And Bera is looking up at me, and I said, Bera, I'm going to have a rest for a while. And Bera says, just take your time, mate. So I'm sitting here, honestly, an hour before I could psych myself up to keep going. Didn't want to. Carried on down. The second part was even harder. It was steep, and I had a couple of times where I nearly lost it completely. And there was one time where I actually ended up dangling from one hand, and Frosty was on me, and we were literally hanging, and I was hanging one hand before I could get another hand at it, and I was going down like this now. I wasn't using it behind my body before I could get to another ledge and put the rope behind myself again. Sorted it out a bit further, slowly fed my way down, and with the last bit, and we'd run out of rope, and I knew that there was another strop we could go, but I figured the last bit, what I could do is if I could get him to release the rope at the top, I could lower Frosty down from that ledge, and I could free climb the last bit. I couldn't shout loud enough to tell Alen to hear that. He wasn't hearing me. It was too far off. I'd call something out, but I couldn't hear him back, and Bera couldn't hear him back. So I said to Bera, you're going to have to go to the top and cut that rope at the top of the tree so I can lower the dog down. Bera was below me probably, I suppose, 30, 40 metres. Maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe 25. Bera was like, fuck. So Bera, who's a big guy, he drove his truck around. I heard him drive it and drive it and drive it. And then I could hear it sounded like he was going halfway up the bloody hill with it. There was a track, but I thought, surely he's not going up this bloody track. It didn't take long. I heard a big loud whistle. I held onto my rope, and next minute the rope from the top got thrown down and went all the way down. So now I had it. I had another small plant coming out of the side and a crag. I tied the rope around that there and made like a pulley system so it slipped over the tree, and I put Frosty on it and I started to lower Frosty down. It was like hanging like this. And when I put him over the edge of the cliff, he didn't trust it. He was like, "Arr, arr," first noise he made, and he was like clawing at the rock, and I actually had to put him out into nothingness, and it felt so horrible just letting him go. And I'm feeding it out with my hand that's all cut, and I'm feeding it through the tree, and Frosty's going to the bottom. And the whole time he's like looking at me with his eyes. And I'm like, just trust me, mate, I'm not going to drop you. I got him to the very end. By the time I got him to the very end, Alen was down there, and he said that Bera has got the truck stuck halfway up the hill. He's gonna, because he'd driven way where he shouldn't have, and he's trying to turn it around. And I'm now ready to free climb the last 30 odd metres or what it was. Well, that was like the hell climb. And the last 10 metres, it was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. My hands were ripped. My fingernails all coming off at the ends. I'm bruised on my knees. I'm just shattered. And I'm looking behind me there, and there's a whole lot of bushes, and I thought, I'm just going to jump out 10 metres. And I said to Alen, I said, I'm going to jump into that. And he said, don't jump into that, mate. He said, don't jump there. You've got to climb down. If I jumped, I would have killed myself because it was really thin. I just would have gone straight through and onto the rock. But I was buggered. So I'm clinging on this last bit of rock here, and I mustered up my final strength to get down. And as I'm getting down there, this fingernail here, the one next to your index, this one here, it sort of got caught, and I peeled it right back halfway, and I was like, it just was one of those little small things that fucking hurt. So now I had this thing was peeled right off. The other ones were all damaged, but this one was torn right back. I was basically holding on my fingernails to the rocks, but toes, everything. I'm not wearing gumboots, I'm in bare feet. My toes and everything's ripped. My knees have got chunks out of them. It's just, I'm an absolute mess, and I've got this last 10 metres to go. Well, it took me probably another 20 minutes to scale that wall. I finally got down. There was one part where there was a crack running down the wall, and the only way you could do it was put your hand inside and make a fist, and then hang from your fist, and then put your hand in again, and have your legs spread wide. And I was like spidering all the way down. When I got to the bottom, I kissed the ground. Frosty come over, he licked my face. His tail was wagging, and I was on the ground. He was like licking the blood off my hands, and he was like all over me. And then Bera come up the hill sweating, and I can remember seeing all of Bera's mascara had all run, and she looked like something out of Kiss. She had these big black things down there. Or he did, not she, I always called her she. He, Bera, and Alen was like, fuck mate, that was intense. And I was like, yeah, look at my nails, and my hands were just ripped, everything was ripped. They helped me back to the vehicle, which by now had been like turned around and got out of the bush. We didn't bother with the pig that was on the ground because I needed some attention. They took me into hospital, into A&E, and we got there, and it's always the same in A&E. It's been like it forever since I know New Zealand. I ended up sitting there for 7.5 hours, which is not a long wait compared to some people. And they taped me up. They put some stitches on a place on my toe, which I've still got the scar today, and gave me some fluids. And that was my final hunt with Frosty. When things calmed down, I didn't work at Salters anymore after that because that was the final hunt. I went round to the house of Bera, and Alen was there and his wife and his 2 sons, and we had a really, really nice meal. They gave me a Sunday roast. This was a week later. Gave me a Sunday roast, and his wife cooked the nicest pikelets and scones. She cooked all this lovely stuff. And I remember thinking how when I first saw Bera in the pub, and I thought, gee, he's a bit weird. how judged so wrongly, how I'd been so inaccurate. This bloke, this big man who dressed like a woman, was one of the most awesome people I've met in my life. And Alen, that looked funny, that had a funny twitch, was also one of the most awesome people. I love these people. And it was a really, really a good lesson in to not judge people. When we said goodbye, they dropped me off. I was hitching. I didn't have the vehicle anymore. Sandra had long gone. I was hitching from Auckland and I was wanting to go to Te Puke because it was coming into May and it was the kiwi fruit season. And I was hitching there and I was hoping to meet up with my sister Trudy. When we said our goodbyes, Alen shook my hand and he said, "You're a good bastard." And I shook his hand and I shook Berta's hand, and she was Berta because they were off out to go out to town and she was dressed up and she cried. Well, he cried and his mascara ran and it was like, oh, jeez. And he said to me, "Look after yourself, fella. You're going to have a colourful life." And he's right, I have had a colourful life. Off we went. I got picked up by a trucker and I got a ride all the way to, to turn off, forget the name, long time. It was a good ride onto where I was going to Te Puke. There was a place where you turn off. You guys will know the area well, but this trucker, he had a friend in Te Puke that bought possum skins. So I had a contact. It was a guy that, he was a merchant or trader, and he would buy greens and we didn't pluck possums in those days, and he'd buy treated or dried and he'd buy them green. So I had a contact and I was off to go and start my adventures there with Frosty. Now, Frosty was supposed to go back. I was supposed to be getting him back at the end of summer. Mel had originally said, have Frosty back by the end of summer. I phoned him up at the house in River Road, the guy that had a tobacco plantation there, and got Mel on the phone. And Mel had said to me, "Don't bring Frosty back right now. I've got to go back to Australia because my mother's sick." And so he disappeared, and I didn't have any contact with him after that, so I didn't know if I was supposed to be back there or not. As it turned out, he was pissed off at me. I should have been back, but I hadn't made any contact after that phone call. But he didn't know where I was, and we didn't have cell phones, so I'd lost a bit of contact. When I got to Te Puke, I met up with this guy that the truck driver put me onto. His name was Harold, and Harold, he had a little business. He was buying and selling skins, and what he was acting as a middleman for another merchant. Anyway, I was about to find out a whole lot of stuff about how bad people can be and how bad things can happen, but also how good things can happen. And Te Puke will be where I'll fire into the next story, because there's a whole lot of stuff for you in between I need to tell you. That was the story here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Bro Check Club throwback. Frosty the Pig Dog stories have been received better than I thought they would. I'm a bit parched, I need a drink of water. I've been talking too much, I'm going to have a cup of tea. We'll catch the next adventures of Frosty. Go steady. And if you've taken anything from this story, today's theme would be never ever judge a book by its cover. Don't judge people, because some of the nicest people that you'll meet in your life may at first appear to be a bit weird or a bit strange, but don't let that cloud your vision. Sometimes they can become some of your best mates. Go steady, and if you know a brother that would enjoy this and needs a bit of lifting up, then share him a Frosty the Pig Dog's adventure. They're easy for me to tell, because I've just got to remember my past and say it like it is, and you guys seem to still be enjoying them, so smash the like button if you made it to the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Righto, see you later.